Hi guys, Buildzoid here, and this will be a pretty different video. I'm going to be trying to talk at the same time as I'm going to be reassembling this R9 270X Hawk. This is a piece of fan mail I got, so huge thanks to the guy who sent this, because this is very much one of those cards that if it hadn't showed up in the AHOC PO box, I would have definitely bought one off of eBay soon. Because, yeah, the Hawk series, basically when MSI still did these were extreme overclocking cards for people who couldn't afford the flagship cards. So you have like the voltage read points, you have this, the BIOS switch, a really solid VRM, and yeah, basically it's a really nice mid-range card, right? It's an R9 270X. It's actually originally, that stain's not coming off. Oh, I guess it's just scratched then. Well, whatever. Yeah, this is basically an extreme overclocking card for the mid-range. So anyway, we'll put the PCB away because we first need to assemble the heatsink. So yeah, and we got the fans. Just going to throw this together. And so basically what I do with a lot of GPUs is that, and I'm not sure, probably, yeah, okay, it makes most sense that goes like, yep, okay, that's how it goes. And also realizing my recording setup here is, as usual, getting in the way of doing anything that I actually want to do. So I should have probably used the wireless mic, not the wired one, but anyway, let's see. Because this has to hook the cable down there. How does this one go on? See. So yeah, this is going to be great. Worst case scenario, this is going to turn into a silent video. I'm pretty sure... Yeah, that's offset a bit, so that has to go... like... so... Anyway, the thing is just any card I get my hands on, unless it's like brand new, I'll actually clean it. And even if it's brand new, I'll probably end up replacing the thermal paste, because a lot of the time, like, I think it might just be variants, just manufactured card to manufactured card, but a lot of the time you'll find that swapping the thermal paste, even on a brand new card, will improve the thermals. And why don't these reach? Pretty sure I have it correct. Yeah, the fans don't... Well, this one's fine. This one's where it's supposed to be, so I'll just do this one and worry about the rest later. Well, worry about the other one afterwards. So, yeah, clean up cards, rebuild them, and then that's kind of that. Anyway, I didn't really want this video to be like talking about the card. So what I want to talk instead about is voltage readings on motherboards, and I think I've done a video about this maybe already, but oh, I see why that's a problem. This isn't where it's supposed to be. But yeah, so voltage readings on motherboards. So as you know, in the VRM thermal video I did about the ASRock, yeah, that doesn't go through the bloody shroud, does it? So with the Z390 Phantom Gaming ITX, I was complaining about how it's impossible to get the voltages across a bunch of different motherboards to basically match up, and that really screws you over if you're trying to do something like VRM thermal testing, because you end up with not knowing what voltage the CPU... Like, you don't know how much power is actually going anywhere, because the power is very much... well, pretty much entirely tied to the average CPU voltage, and... for the most part, at least, and the operating frequency. So, you know, it's just like, if you don't know the voltage, you don't really know the power that you're pulling. Because the thing is, software power draw readings are also often grossly inaccurate. And so you're kind of... Which leads to a few issues, but with the VRM testing, right, it just means, like, I don't know how much load I'm actually putting on the VRM, which is obviously a problem. Because that means comparing the motherboards is really difficult. Now, on AMD, it's not that hard to deal with, because the SVI2 sensor that's built into the CPUs either works or it doesn't work at all. As in, on some motherboards, it's so, like, completely incorrect that it's really obvious. But on Intel motherboards, you don't have a sensor like that. You basically have to hope that the manufacturer has actually done something, to give you voltage readings directly from the CPU die, because there is a functionality for that, because that's what the voltage regulator uses to monitor how much voltage it's delivering to the chip. But yeah, the thing is, on a lot of motherboards, there's just no way to access that reading. So, yeah. And on like Gigabyte motherboards and Asus motherboards, you can just check the... Well, Asus gives you a... Like, Asus motherboards have an op-amp that basically takes the voltage on the sense lines from the die of the CPU, and they replicate it for the rest of the systems on the board. I have a problem here. This cable being stupid. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, Asus boards like basically replicate the voltage for the chips, like the Super I/O chip and basically everything, as well as like the voltage read points on the motherboard. Because that's the thing, is like even the voltage read points, well, just like the Super I/O chip, those will actually be hooked up to the to the CPU power plane inside the CPU socket cavity. Normally, that's normally where you'd see that connected. And the thing about that is that obviously that's not very accurate, right? Because that measures the CPU voltage before the resistance of the CPU socket, and especially with something like a 9900K, where you know a 9900K pulls just an absolutely stupid amount of current. The resistance of the CPU socket, it leads to a pretty significant error in the voltage reading if you just use the socket measurement instead of like the on-die measurement. So that really sucks. So, you know, Asus motherboards, they get around that because they have the op-amp. Gigabyte motherboards, you can normally just use the voltage reading directly from the voltage controller, so because Gigabyte's nice enough to expose their voltage controllers to software. Asus doesn't do this. So like on a Gigabyte motherboard with say an IR35201 in hardware info, you can just scroll down to the IR35201 readings, and that's what you want to look at, because software like CPU-Z and will just read off of the Super I/O chip, which is going to be reading completely wrong. And also this is taking far less time to reassemble than I was hoping for. Oh well, we're getting to the cutting thermal pads part, so this is gonna... Are we? Yeah, we are. We're going to be doing thermal pads. So, yeah, so with the Gigabyte boards, you can normally just look at the voltage reading from the VRM controller. But the thing is okay, so we don't need a pad down there. The thing is just like, you know, so like basically with Asus and Gigabyte motherboards, you actually have some way to get a useful voltage reading that's from the CPU itself. For a lot of other board vendors, like, say, ASRock and MSI, depending on what voltage controller... Well, actually, no. If you look at a Gigabyte motherboard that uses a cheap enough voltage controller, you're just as screwed. Yeah, the thing is... I need a 1mm. I don't think I have a point. Yeah, okay, we'll use this one. So... Actually, we can just throw that on there. Isn't it? Let's see... Oh, no, there's... I think this is a 1mm pad. I don't think I've... Well, whatever. I'll just use it. But, yeah, and I do want scissors for this. So, yeah, I can't think and do complex actions like this at the same time. Well, more like I can't talk and do complicated things like that. Okay, so we're going to cut it there. Yeah. So basically, I just made an impression of the memory chips in the thermal pad, and I am just going to cut it way too big, because that is easier than trying to cut everything to size. Bam. And it doesn't hurt anything. But, yeah. Hard one. And, oh, I'm an idiot. Right. Well, actually, no, I can put it on here, can't I? Wait, how does... So, where was I? Right, gigabyte boards. You know, you have the VRM readings from, well, you have the voltage readings from the VRM. Those are nice and accurate. Asus boards, you also have readings. MSI and ASRock, you kind of, well, it ultimately depends. Like low-end Asus boards will also not have access to the VRM controller, and those won't have the op amp either. I just want to check that these actually make contact. Because it's like, if you install thermal pads that are too thin, then they're not going to do anything, and then you're just wasting time, aren't you? Really should have noted down what this used stock. Yeah, now if it wasn't for the give of the plate, this wouldn't work. This has to be a 0.5 then. Yeah, that's got to be a 0.5. Because like most GPUs use a 1mm. Yeah, this is so yeah, that's a 0.5. I'm an idiot. Anyway. But the basic problem with that, so you have the differences in the voltage readings. And the end result of that is that you can't do things like compare motherboards so not only does it make VRM thermal testing an absolute, nightmare because you just don't know what voltage the CPU is actually running on, it also means you can't judge motherboards on like minimum voltage for given frequency for stability. Because, well, that is like, if you're really pushing the stability limits of a motherboard, you're going to run into the issue of just like the CPU, if you run, say, Cinebench on really like borderline stability settings, right? It might pass like 5 times out of 6, right? Or worse, 9 times out of 6. And then, or 9 times out of 10. And then you're in this really awkward situation where it's like, okay, well, we don't know that you basically run into, we don't know if the voltage is consistent. And then there's also the sort of tester bias on, like, did you do enough test passes and how much instability do you consider a fail, right? Where this is a thing where if you're already biased in favor of one motherboard over another motherboard, and then you do this kind of, stability testing, then you're very likely to call the better motherboard better, well, the motherboard you think is better, just because, it seemed more stable to you. So it's really hard to do a judgment like that. Now, you could go for like a 24-hour Prime 95 pass, or, a 2-day Prime 95 pass, and that should be a very, stringent, replicable, reliable stability test, but that takes up a ton of time, obviously, right? So that's not really something you'd see a lot of people doing. This one is going to be the right height, so we don't need this anymore. Probably, yeah, well, shame. At least 0.5mm thermal pads are cheaper than the full-size ones. Well, like the 1mm ones. So that sucks. Let's see. Get it there. Okay, well, that's pretty lopsided, isn't it? But whatever. Those are in a straight line, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, so basically, VR, trying to review motherboards based on which one achieves an overclock on the lowest voltage doesn't work. And thermal testing is also an absolute nightmare on Intel as a result as well. And, yeah, that's really, really annoying. And now I have an idea for a solution for this that I'm going to be hopefully implementing sometime soon, because I've found a way to probably attach voltage probes straight to the CPU itself. Because the thing is, if you want to, you can actually go and hunt down the sense lines from the CPU to the motherboard's VRM controller, and those are present on every motherboard. They have to be there because otherwise the VRM wouldn't work. But the thing is, it's an absolute nightmare to actually find that. So, wait, let's see. Yeah, now they're making contact. Where did that extra one go? We can fold this over, and I'm gonna throw that on the VRMs over down there. Because actually, see, those might be tall. Oh, yeah. So the pads came up. Oh, whatever. We don't need that much. Like, the coverage isn't that important. Actually, I think I'll go for a thicker pad in that area. Yeah, I'll still use a thicker pad in that area. We'll just throw that one away. Because I do have this option, right? I could just cut off that extra bit at the end. Yeah. Well, anyway, so basically the plan is I'm going to build a CPU with probes attached to it. Probably going to be an 8700K because for Z390, and then once, like, the thing is, the thing about doing it like from the CPU is it also means that if you're going to do like oscilloscope measurements, those are theoretically going to be more reliable if you measure directly from the CPU package instead of just, you know, from the sense circuitry of the voltage controller. Because you don't know where those traces have been. That's kind of an issue, is just like, yeah, if they're going through a really noisy area, then you're going to pick up a bunch of noise. And then the thing is also, by the time those get to the voltage controller, there's normally a filter for the voltage sensing circuitry of the control. Well, for the voltage sense inputs of the controller. So if you try to measure off of that, you're probably not going to be measuring very, like, you're not going to see everything that's actually going on at the CPU. And yep, those make contact, so that's great. Let's put those on there. Let's have a... We just need this one down here. So yeah, that's just one of those things that has been bugging me with my testing for ages and ages and ages, and now I'm like, finally, yeah, I'm gonna solve it. I'm just gonna build a probinator CPU. Oh. Hope this one's... It's interesting how all of these are 1mm, but I'm pretty sure these chips are taller than the memory chips, and these are lower than everything else, but... Well, let's see. If they don't make contact, then I've just wasted more thermal pad, which is not great, but at the same time, I'm not buying, like, super expensive ones. These are relatively cheap ones from DigiKey, so... I don't think this is making great contact. Oh no, it is making contact. Like, the memory chips are doing great, and these are doing fine as well, because those are even taller than the memory chips, but these, I think, are definitely... I think those are lower. I do have a thicker thermal pad, so I guess I'll just go with that. Don't really want the like, of all the things to not have a proper VR thermal pad on, like, the VRM is probably the worst, so here we go. Yeah, and I have like a ton of the 1.5mm, so there's no shortage of that. I guess we can still use the failure as a indicator of what I need to cut out. Need more than that. Gonna be a little bit oversized, but whatever. There we go. The thing is, since it's a little bit too, it might be a bit too thick, but if it crushes down, then it'll spread out a bit. So if it's too skinny and too thick, then that actually works fine. Hop. That away. Yeah, that covers everything quite nicely. And then once the plate goes on, that'll crush it down further. Oh, whatever. Get off me. Yep, that's nice. Okay. If I remember correctly, where's the back plate? Where is the back plate? Did I forget to bring it? I guess I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, because the thing is, with this card, you actually need, like, the back plate holds the front plate on. Like, the screws that MSI uses are, they look like this. Ugh. Yeah, so you see, if you don't have the back plate, this isn't going to put down any mounting pressure. So, let's flip this over. Oh no, it's not aligned perfectly. I hate rebuilding GPUs. Actually, no. Motherboards are worse for rebuilding like this. Far, far worse. Actually, could do that part first. Yeah, it's these two big fat ones, isn't it? Yep. Okay, so we'll do the PCIe end first because that's going to hold the whole plate in place relatively well. Damn it. I really wish I had 3 hands. Three hands would be optimal. Well, actually 4. Well, more hands is more better, but 3 is like the minimum I'd consider significantly more helpful. Because, you know, like, because you can hold the thing together with one hand, hold the screw with another hand, and then the screwdriver with your third hand, and bam. Like, don't have to deal with so many issues so much. But, life would become much easier when assembling things. Yeah, now it's all aligned. And, well, I still do need to hold the plate in place, because, yeah, thermal pads, they shifted, but not enough to cause issues. So, throw this on. Go, like that. I'm going to start off with... Managed to get the screw on the thing one-handed. There we go. Now the plate's going to stop falling off, and at this point progress is going to be much faster. Come on. Hopefully I have all the screws. I think I do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. There's not that many of them. If I don't, well, I think I can probably find some spares, because I've taken apart quite a few MSI GPUs. Actually, no, I'm definitely, like, I'm missing that one. So yeah, I'll have to go through my bin of spares. Unless... Wait a minute, I dropped one. How did that one get out of there? So that is the back plate on. There's no thermal pads on the back plate. There's a plastic sort of barrier on it to prevent shorting. So it's very much here just as like a structural rigidity improvement. It doesn't actually do anything for thermals. If anything, it probably makes them worse as it traps hot air between the PCB and the backplate itself, right? So yeah, but that's normal for most backplates. It's a relatively, I'd say it's a relatively modern development that we see backplates with thermal pads on them. In the past, that wasn't really a thing. And I really don't like the base of this cooler. Like, the machining is just, it looks like it looks like brushed aluminum, which is just stupid for a heatsink. It's like, it should be smooth, but whatever. So we're going to use some Cryonaut because it was the first thermal paste that I just managed to grab. And there is no such thing as too much thermal paste, but there's definitely such a thing as way too little, and this is plenty. Because the thing is just, well, no, like, okay, no, that's a 37 gram tube of Cryonaut. If I emptied that on the card, it would probably cover the whole thing, so that would be definitely way too much. But, you know, outside of extreme examples like that, there's really not that, like, there's not really an upper limit to how much thermal paste you can use. Just gonna check that. Okay, that's gonna be relatively easy to connect. Cool. So we're gonna put the cooler down. Ideally, we'd want to actually have the cooler lifted up a bit because I think this bracket actually it might be taller. So we'll just use a memory stick. There. Card goes on like this. This cable's gonna be a bit of a problem. There we go. Screws. So, and I keep putting pressure down on the center of the core with my fingers. It's just a paranoia thing because if you don't do that and you rock the PCB like over the core, then you're going to start cracking corners. And generally that doesn't break chips. Like 90% of the time, you know, chipping the corners on a GPU or something probably won't kill it, but it can. And so, yeah, I just tend to stick with extra caution for reassemblies like this. So, yeah, that's the full rebuild. This video probably sucked. Now we just need to plug in the cable. And I'm not going to actually power it up because I don't have a, like, assembled test bench to do that with. Try cable manage it a bit. There we go. I have the cable, and bam! Like new. So, yeah. Well, other than, like, the scuffs on the backplate, but other than that, like, I'm really happy with it. When I got the card, it was rather dusty. So, yeah, that's a full rebuild. Thank you, Memory Stick, for supporting our GPU here. Yeah, so that's it for the video. If you think it sucked, which I think it did, you can confirm my suspicions down in the comments section. And if you didn't think it sucked, there's a like button that doesn't apparently do much, but yeah, you can hit that. You can subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I do have a Patreon where you can support me directly. There's a link to that down in the description below. It also gives you early access to videos. I honestly say, like, it's generally not a huge advantage over what ends up on the channel because I don't like sitting on content, but yeah, you can get early access through Patreon. If you're interested, I'd like the thing is basically you get early access for content I consider non-priority. So that's kind of the thing. It's just stuff that is old and irrelevant basically ends up behind early access for longest. Anyway, what else was there? Oh, and if you'd like to just buy some AHOC merch, there's Teespring. You can find a link to that down in the description below. There's shirts, there's posters, there's stickers, there's socks. Yeah, and both Patreon and Teespring help out immensely with running the channel, as well as sharing the videos. That helps too. And yeah, that's it for the video. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.